Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Petovich here talking about our big windstorm heading our way this weekend. Really complex setup, but very typical of these late March, April systems. They tend to be pretty potent with a lot of wind, and we can actually see the beginnings of this low pressure. This whole thing is rotating out here. It's going to move into the plains, and it's already starting to tap into some warm, humid air at the surface. So it's that strong jet stream wind overlapping some warm, humid air at the surface that's going to set the stage for this system. Now I'm going to turn on the water vapor loop. It'll take a second to load here, but you can kind of see that energy. All of the west coast is kind of spinning right now, and you can see that big influx of wind and moisture through the middle of the country. Now, a couple things first. We'll talk with the severe weather outbreak possible in the middle of the country. Friends or family, excuse me, in this part of the country, they need to be on guard, especially these areas, northern Illinois, eastern Iowa, northeastern Missouri, and then the Boot Heel, Missouri, down towards northeast Arkansas, western Tennessee, northern Mississippi. Those two areas in particular could have some long track tornadoes. That's where the tornado risk is highest. But this whole area is going to see some really strong winds. And the winds will be the story of the system, I think, overall, even though there could be some strong tornadoes. By Saturday, the system's weaker, but it's moving into the Carolinas with a lot of wind energy. So much wind energy, we already have high wind watches. Now, we sometimes see these for the mountains, but it's pretty rare to see such a big area under a high wind watch. You don't normally see this unless you have a pretty significant event coming. We likely could see counties added in here or even the upstate, but more than likely we're going to see wind advisories. So we'll just go straight to a wind advisory, which is an upgrade from a watch, and then most of these will be converted to a high wind warning, and potentially west winds 20 to 35 miles per hour with gusts, yes, 60 to 65. And this is over the entire day Saturday, so that long period of time will definitely lead to the possibility of some damaging winds. Now, one of the things I was showing earlier in the week was these low-level winds, which are at 5,000 feet. We refer to this as the 850 millibar level or the low-level jet. You could see how strong those winds are, well over 75, 80 miles per hour. Now, that's at 5,000 feet. Now, granted, we don't live at 5,000 feet unless you live in the mountains, right? So in the mountains or higher elevations, you're going to jut up into those winds. But for folks in the lower elevations, this could be problematic because these can mix down to the surface. Watch as those strong winds push east Friday night into early Saturday, and you can see how almost all of the Carolinas start to see those really strong winds, especially east of the mountains. Now here, the mountains will be up into that, so it'll definitely be blowing and blocking some of it. That's why you see some of the lower totals. But that southwest wind early Saturday then becomes a really strong westerly wind, and you can see those winds, boy, late Saturday really coming off the mountains. And that cool looking kind of, it's cool to me, but the way this is oriented, this is the kind of eddies or like turbulent flow you get when strong winds come over a mountain. So this mountain range, the Southern Appalachians, is going to disrupt this and actually mix some of this air down to the surface. And the way that works is I got a little diagram to kind of show you what happens in this situation. When that air hits the mountains, remember, the Blue Ridge Mountains peak around 6,000 feet, but there's a big chunk of these that'll be up there around 5,000 feet. So what happens is, just like water in a stream hitting a rock or boulder that's submerged, it's going to force the air up, which then starts the air moving in a wave pattern like this. And this wave pattern, what happens is, once the ground heats up over here to the Piedmont, the air, the mix layer starts mixing up like this. And what happens is some of these strong winds, which are up at 5,000 feet, start coming down in strong wind gusts. That's why they come in all of a sudden you'll get this strong gust of wind. It feels like it came out of nowhere. It's because one of these little eddies or one of these little dips in the wave pattern will affect you. And this will happen over most of Saturday. So Saturday is going to have the potential to have some really, really strong winds. But it's also going to have a small potential for severe weather. Though I would not really worry so much about the rain Saturday or the thunderstorm chances, though they're there. It's the overall wind threat, because look at this line that does come in early Saturday, but it's not going to be a rainy day by any stretch of the imagination. So if you're worried about rain on Saturday, the only time you really got to worry about rain is when this little line comes through right about here. 7 a.m. enters the mountains and moves down. Now again, because this is a pocket of heavy rain, this will also mix strong winds down to the surface. So when this thing comes through, if it's 10 a.m. Saturday morning to, let's say, noon, there definitely could be some damaging winds and a low-end tornado risk. But overall, it's not the storms that are causing the winds, because, yeah, it's raining here, but there's 30, 40 mile an hour winds here. there's 30 to 40 mile an hour winds here. And after the front pushes east over time, then we get into Saturday afternoon, the sun could be out, and it will, and all of a sudden you're going to have blue skies with the winds howling at 40 miles an hour, which could happen most of Saturday afternoon. So under clear skies, we could have these strongest winds, which in the past has brought down trees and power lines. So here's the surface wind gust forecast, and I've shown this on my page a couple times, but just to kind of give you a timing. So even on Friday, we should start to see the winds pick up. Friday night, they pick up even more, so while you're sleeping, you're going to start hearing the wind rustling around leaves and branches. And again, remember, there's a lot of leaves on the trees already, so there's some surface area for these winds to get caught in the trees, which means we'll probably see some come down. Early Saturday, it's southwest winds, pretty strong, gusting to 30, 35. Okay, that seems like a pretty windy start to the day. But then watch the front move through the area, and behind it, the west winds pick up. And man, I'm telling you what, right here, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we've got 50 to 60 mile winds in the mountains with 40 to 45 mile per hour gusts. And as those little dips coming over the mountains develop, some of these gusts could go higher. So pretty potent wind setup. And you can see even into Saturday night, the winds are howling for a while. In the mountains, some of the worst winds might be Saturday night, as the inversion kind of pushes it down near the surface. And then Sunday, things will improve pretty quickly. But again, it's just a heads up that in the past, when we've seen setups like this, we certainly have seen some tree limbs come down, which has knocked power out. Do I think it'll be widespread? It's hard to say. It just depends on the trees and the power lines. But anytime I see this setup, we're going to get some scattered power outages and trees come down. You know, if you've lived there any length of time, just the slightest breath of air tends to take down a tree or two. When you get winds like this, you're going to probably see a lot of branches and trees come down. It's going to happen pretty quickly. And again, overall, the day is pretty dry. So I'll keep an eye on this, but just stay weather aware for Saturday for this potential strong wind event. That means any outdoor furniture, loose items like, jumpy houses, trampolines and the like. So anything, if you have a festival going on or a party and you've got temporary structures like tents or balloons and stuff, just beware. I would be very tentative to put that stuff up, and if I did, I would make sure it is heavily staked down for safety reasons. And even then, if it gets real crazy, you might just want to take it down, especially as we get into the afternoon.